And then they were on Saturdays. We're glad that you're with us here for a Mitchell Talk special, Beyond the Bell. And, the guy who always makes it happen. And a shout out to Nate back at News 9, who's making this happen all over our platforms. But first, I welcome Ryan Welton, Director of Digital Content for Griffin Communications. Mr. Welton, by the way, flying his UCLA flag in the background, 49er flag. There's all kinds of stuff going on in the background at your place. Good to see you, man.
Hey, good to see you. When you get married, you double your teams. I'm an OU guy, a Dallas Cowboy, Texas Ranger, but now I'm a UCLA Bruin, a 49er, and a Los Angeles Dodgers. And glad that baseball is back. So the week has ended on a very high note.
Not a bad week. And so it's always great to see. We occasionally do Saturdays. I think we're back for Saturdays for a while. It's been a really wonderful time when we do an education series on Saturday or breaking events on Saturdays. But we're going to be here for a while for the next few weeks, and we're going to tell you all about that in just a moment. For those who may not have seen one of our live streams, and we stream on Mondays and Wednesday nights, one of the reasons we got started on this was more than a couple of years ago when we were doing some live streams from camps during the teacher walkout. And that was way before COVID, but that sort of got our feet wet, Ryan, in terms of live streams on all the different platforms. We're going to mention those in just a moment. But for those of you who pay attention to the news, it's just been 2 years since that little incident at the Oklahoma City Thunder game with the Utah Jazz. And I can't remember exactly what day that was of the week, but the following Monday, we were live streaming from Tower Theater. We decided to do 60 straight days because, heaven's sakes, that this thing's going to be over with, this COVID thing in 60 days, right? We'll have that handled. It's like the Babe Ruth trade, not a good statement to make or not a good idea. 2 years we've been doing this. And so it's turned into other platforms and laterally into other days. But for folks that are joining us, Ryan, there are a lot of places to see these streams now upcoming. Could you just give us an idea where people can see these in the future?
You bet. Well, first off, there's the flagship platforms, the News 9 and News on 6 platforms. We're talking about our website, our news app, and if you don't have that downloaded, I highly encourage it, but also what we call our streaming app. Some people in the industry call it over-the-top, OTT. Streaming app can be found on Roku, it can be found on Amazon Fire Stick, and it can be found on Apple TV. I'm told it can also be found on Android TV, but essentially these are apps for your televisions to where you can watch News 9, News on 6 from wherever you are in the country, in the world, as long as you have access to the app. We've been doing it there, but we've also been doing it on Facebook, and the flagship for Facebook is Mitchell Talks. Usually on Mondays and Wednesday nights, we'll retweet from Scott's Twitter to our Twitters, but today Nate has set us up to where we're streaming on the News 9 Twitter account. So if you're not following News 9 and News on 6, please do so. And as an added bonus for people who happen to prefer YouTube, we're streaming Beyond the Bell today on the News 9 YouTube channel. So we're trying to follow that omni-platform pillars of content strategy and to get it out everywhere. And then after the fact, we clip it up and we put it out on our platforms for on-demand viewing. So if you happen to not be watching live, you can go out to our streaming app and watch it on your big screen TV later on, tonight, next week, next month, next year.
In other words, if you can't find this, you ain't trying hard enough, as they say.
This is correct.
Something along those lines. All right, so we have a great lineup for you. I'm going to bring folks in so everybody can see our guest. We're going to go through. They'll probably leave for just a moment. We want to introduce our guest today. First, I want to, and there's a surprise, by the way, when we were signing up a while ago and everybody's logging in, we got to see Speaker Pro Tem, okay, which we didn't know we were going to have Kyle Hilbert. We pre-taped his appearance the other day, and then lo and behold, he is going to join us. Also, let me also introduce to you Emily Ann Gullickson for Arizona, who's going to be with us just a moment. We're all Cardinal fans, by the way. So Emily's going to be with us. Thanks for being with us, Emily.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, see you in just a moment. Also, Janice Danforth from Moms for Liberty up in Tulsa. Janice, good to see you. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, excited.
All right, thanks for being with us. And Eric Doss with Oklahoma Public School Resource Center, who has to work with Brent Bushy. So he has a great job, but also has to deal with that personality.
Well,
Good to
luckily
see
I
you,
get
Gary.
in the Tulsa office most of the time. So
Okay, well, that's extra good for you. All right, thanks for joining us. See you in a few.
thanks.
All right, so here he is, the Speaker Pro Tem, who is running around the country. We were trying to tape the other day from the Capitol and having a little Wi-Fi issue, which happens occasionally. And we're talking about your bills. And Ryan, we did this the other day. Now we've rehearsed our conversation with the Speaker Pro Tem.
Right. And I'm particularly fascinated about the Beyond the Yellow School Bus set of bills. So, what could you tell us about House Bills 3084 and 3086? These streams beyond the bell are about educational innovation. And I don't think I had thought about transportation as being part of that innovation equation. So take it away.
You bet. And thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Scott. Good to be with you guys this morning. Yeah, broadband, we often talk about it being a rural issue, but it's all across the state and our state capital as well. We've got to continue to make improvements in broadband, but good to be with you live from Bristow, from my house. Transportation is certainly a very important issue. Last year, the Oklahoma legislature, we passed open transfer, which allows students, as long as the school has capacity, to transfer in. The school has to have capacity. As long as there are no discipline or truancy issues with a particular student, then they can transfer in. And one of the conversations that we had in a bipartisan fashion on the House floor during these discussions was, okay, if we're going to talk about open transfers, we also have to talk about transportation. And I made a commitment, and many others made a commitment that, okay, when we come into the 2022 session, that's going to be a big part of the conversation. And that's what these two bills really are. And House Bill 3084 cleans up some antiquated language. So right now, if a school district wants to pick up a child who lives outside of their school district boundaries, they have to get permission from the opposite school district in order to pick that kid up. Even if that student and their parents want to attend this school and the school is willing to go get them, they can't just up and go do that. And so this removes that language to allow school districts the opportunity, should they desire to do so, to go pick up students outside of their districts and pursue those open transfers. And a perfect example of this is within my district. I have a family that I know very well, go to church with, and they utilize open transfer to attend a school that's outside of their district. However, the interesting thing is the school that they attend is actually significantly closer and even on the same street as the school that their kids are actually districted in. And so in this scenario, the school that their kids could attend could actually go pick them up with the school bus if they want to. And that's what this bill does. It's nothing forcing school districts to do it, just allowing them to be innovative in how they handle open transfers. And House Bill 3086 is the second piece of this. We're looking at transportation innovation grants to allow school districts to think of creative ways to get beyond the yellow school bus of how they can get kids to school. And this isn't just about saving money, but it's also about the kids, because nobody wants to leave kids for multiple hours before school and after school sitting on a school bus.
Has there been any conversation about how the second part of this 3086 would be administered? It enters in, it allows for some movement of funds to parents and or neighborhood carpools, but has there been any thought or discussion about how it would be administered?
Yeah, great question. There would need to be some sort of administration for who is approving the grants, and that particular piece of the process is still being worked out. But at the end of the day, what I don't want to see happen with House Bill 3086 is that we have a very strict, rigid, black and white process that we mandate from Oklahoma City with these grants, because what we want is innovation. Because what you see across the state of Oklahoma, what's going to work in Oklahoma City Public School District is not going to be the same that works in Kellyville Public School District when it comes to transportation. It's just two totally different scenarios. And so let's allow local public schools, if this is something they want to participate in, to be creative and come up with ideas of how do we best get kids to school in a rural setting, in a suburban setting, in an urban setting, whichever environment their particular school district is in. And for them to come up with the innovation instead of us mandating it from on high at Capitol Hill in Oklahoma City.
Where are you right now in terms of where the bills are, and what is your outlook?
Yeah, so the first bill I mentioned, House Bill 3084, actually passed the House this week, 91-5. So very, very strong support. Again, this isn't a mandate. It's just empowering school districts to make the best transportation options that work for them. House Bill 3086, the transportation grants, it passed our Appropriations and Budget Committee 24-3. So very strong bipartisan support on that measure as well. It's still waiting to be heard on the House floor. And then from there, we'll go over to the Senate, where we'll work through the process on that end as well.
Have you got a Senate co-author already?
Yes, Senator Pugh, the education chair over on the Senate side, he's the author of these bills, and we've been working very closely on these.
You know, this series is called Beyond the Bell, but let's talk about maybe for a second beyond the yellow school bus. Innovative ideas. Is there anything else on the horizon in the back of your mind that maybe won't be for this legislative session, but that we could see down the road? Are there any sort of like future bills that are just ideas right now?
Yeah, I would say when it comes to transportation, that's part of the idea behind these innovation grants. Is if school districts come up with innovative ways, then potentially that could evolve into new programs as we move into the future. And that's the whole idea behind the pilot programs. There's certainly a lot of education related legislation this session, but these are the two, at least in my mind, that rise to the top when it comes to school transportation.
Well, by the way, I think people should probably know when we introduced you as Speaker Pro Tem, you've made a lot of appearances on News 9, News on 6 over the years as the Appropriations and Budget co-chair. And so I think people would be interested in Kyle Hilbert. Mitchell didn't introduce him as the co-chair of A and B. You want to tell folks about what's been happening with you?
Yeah, just over a month ago, my colleagues in the House elected me to our number 2 position, the Speaker Pro Tempore position in the Oklahoma House. And so I work with our Speaker, Charles McCall, as well as with our entire caucus to move the state forward. Really, the vision is how do we make things better tomorrow than they were yesterday? And we can't fix everything, but let's find the things we can fix and just try to make them better. And so every day is a new day. One of the things I love about serving in the state legislature is that every day is a new day. There are no 2 days the same. It's always new problems, and enjoy getting to work with my colleagues to solve those problems. Yesterday, I was with a couple of my colleagues in Altus and talking about problems in Southwest Oklahoma, and some of the problems they have there are similar to what we face in Creek County, but some are unique. And but we've got to talk about them and address them and move the state forward.
What other education issues do you see that are on the forefront? The media is rife with these stories about the discussion between the House and the Senate leadership on the voucher bill. We aren't going to get into that this morning, but other things that, nuts and bolts type stuff that's going on out there that maybe is flying under the radar screen.
Yeah, obviously that particular legislation is taking up a lot of the oxygen in the room in the education conversation, but there are other bills. I know the governor caught a lot of people's attention when he talked about teachers potentially making $100,000 a year. That catches your eye, right? And while I don't think we'll see a scenario where every teacher in the state is making $100,000, that's just not feasible. We do have to address the very real problem of how do we keep our good, talented teachers that are really good in the classroom. Because right now, if you have a really good teacher, the best way to reward them and simplest way to reward them with more pay is to get them out of the classroom and into administration. And of course, we need good administrators, absolutely, but we also need good teachers that are really good in the classroom. And so how do we allow for career advancement? And this solves several issues. So a couple of bills that I'm running is House Bill 4387, which builds upon legislation that our chair of appropriations on the House side, Rhonda Baker, passed a few years ago, setting up a framework for lead and advanced teachers to receive matching funds, which are provided in another companion bill, House Bill 4388, which takes lottery funds to match funds from school districts if they want to give extra pay for teachers. And what this would allow teachers to do and school districts to do is take their very best teachers, maybe they come out of the classroom for 1 or 2 hours a day and they go class to class to class, mentoring and assisting new teachers. And another reason this is important is because not only do we need to take care of the career ladder issue, we also have to address the other side of the coin of our teacher shortage. In December, our LOF, Legislative Office of Fiscal Transparency, did a report on teacher compensation. And there was a lot of talk in that report about the teacher compensation piece comparing to other states. But another part of that report that wasn't talked about as much, and that was most fascinating to me, is that each year our colleges of education are only graduating 50% as many graduates as we have retirees in education. Simultaneously, by year 5, 50% of teachers leave the profession. So those two things taken together tell us our colleges of education are only meeting 25% of the demand of teaching vacancies that we have. So one, yes, we need to get more people interested in teaching, but just getting more people interested in teaching isn't going to solve the problem. We have to talk about the fact that we have alternative and emergency certified teachers, and we can't function without them. I think oftentimes various groups will like to talk about the number of alternative certified teachers we have and kind of demonize them, really. And it should be the other way around. We should be thanking these professionals for getting in the teaching profession. And so what can we do to surround these alternative and emergency certified teachers with support so that they can learn teaching pedagogy, classroom management, parent management, et cetera, and all that it takes to be a good teacher. And so that's why I think these bills really are important, because not only does it help with our career ladder, it also helps with our alternative certified teachers to help set them up for success as they get in the classroom.
Hey, do you mind if we take a viewer question? I mean, we try to have these better conversations, and this one is Vicky writes. I'm going to put this on the screen, Representative Hilbert. This is interesting. She says, news reported said yesterday schools are thinking of going to lean on parents to pick up their children at halfway points, not take them to the normal pickup location to save on gas. Heard of anything like that?
That's the first I've heard of this, and that's it's up to local school districts how they handle it, but I do not believe that is a good way to handle it, because sure, schools are struggling with the increased cost of gas, but so are parents. On my drive back from Altus yesterday to Bristow, everywhere I went, it was $5 plus for diesel. And so parents are facing these shortages as well. And so I think putting a heavier burden on parents to get their kids to school is not something that school districts should be doing, particularly at this time.
Well, she followed up with this, which is, I think a lot of people believe this right here. So, Vicki, thank you very much for the question. Let me finish up. I know Representative Hilbert, thank you for your time. He's got a young family, and Saturdays, and we're empty nesters now, so the Saturdays are a little lazier around here than they used to be. You're also chairman and a member of a committee on these American Rescue Plan dollars. Any of the things that you're considering right now have to do with education in terms of things that group is considering? You might even tell people what that group is and how they function.
Yeah, so about a year ago, the federal Congress passed the American Rescue Plan Act, and part of that package sent $1.87 billion to the state of Oklahoma. And so we have a group of 26 legislators, half House, half Senate, as well as several members from the executive branch that are working together on packages to really move the state forward with these dollars and make some critical one-time investments. And some of the things that we're working on education is really more higher education, focused on the nursing shortage. This is a problem that's been across the United States, but Oklahoma as well. Is over the course of the past 2 years, we have many Oklahomans, many Americans who have had worse health outcomes and perhaps aren't with us today because of the nursing shortage. In many situations, it wasn't that we didn't have enough physical beds. In many cases, we did, but we didn't have enough nurses to staff those beds. And so we had a nursing shortage before the pandemic, and it's only gotten worse. But the good thing about the nursing workforce shortage is we actually do have the workforce. We just don't have the classroom space. Last year, we denied 1,500 nursing applicants in the state of Oklahoma. And one very encouraging announcement that came out this week, and anyone that knows me knows I bleed orange. I'm an Oklahoma State grad, but I went to the University of Oklahoma's press conference this week where they announced they're accepting every qualified applicant to their nursing program. And that's amazing. They're going to grow their nursing program by 200 students. This isn't something that's going to fix the nursing shortage today, but it's something that's very important and will help us on down the road. So that's really one of the things we're targeting in education when it comes to those ARPA dollars is our nursing shortage.
Super. And by the way, guess who was in the hot seat this morning on News 9? the dean. I'm sorry, not the dean. He's not the dean anymore, but provost, Dr. Gary Raskob, who's really running that project down there. So later today, go to news9.com/Yearbout County. You can see my interview with Dr. Gary Raskob, my favorite Canadian. By the way, my favorite Bristow. But were you a Purple Pirate, by the way?
No, I was actually a DPU Hornet, born and raised, but my wife and I moved to the big city of Bristow a couple years ago.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're officially Purple Pirates now.
There you go.
Representative Kyle Hilbert, it's just a delight. We really thought we just had you on videotape this morning, but it's not videotape, is it, Ryan? It's digital.
No.
Okay, so there's the old man creeping in, but we're delighted to see you. Thanks for everything that you do. I would tell you, my first meeting with Kyle Hilbert, you were representing victims, a victim from your area, the victim of domestic violence, and you've been a really stalwart defender of victims of domestic violence, and appreciate your work on that and all the stuff that you're doing right now at the state legislature, plus being dad. That's the toughest job of all.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it, Scott. Ryan, thanks for having me on this morning, and I look forward to watching that hot seat video.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Speaker Pro Tem Kyle Hilbert from Bristow, Oklahoma. Have a great day. All right, we're going to turn to our next guest, Eric Doss with Oklahoma Public School Resource Center. And we were just talking about how you have to deal with that Michigan State person quite a bit. The team at Oklahoma Public School Resource Center, you heard this conversation. Eric, your thoughts about where we're headed on beyond the yellow school bus?
Well, I think that one of the things that Representative Hilbert really brought up was that if we want to create more choices, we have to give people opportunities to get to those choices. I think that's exactly what your commenter was saying. You can't make it harder on parents and then expect them to really utilize those choices. And a lot of times the parents that have the least access to things like transportation are the ones that really need the most support. So I think it's great for us to be thinking and going down that direction.
So if you would, you mentioned about we can't make it harder on parents, can't make it harder on districts either. And it seems to be the mission of the OPRSC. As I segue into that, districts can join the organization and they get access to professionals in a variety of areas, technical resources. So let's say that I'm a superintendent and I join OPRSC. What kind of services can I expect to get, and what are districts using the organization for the most?
Oh man, that's, that it's all over the gamut, really. So we have 5 core services. We have, and I think of them really as the back office. When I was a school leader, it was people I didn't have to hire to sit, in my office to answer questions every once in a while. So we have legal services. We have communication services. We have financial, which I mean, especially when things are up and down. I think I remember in years when he'd be forecasting that we would have a cut next month and he'd be right on the money. That was great. We also do a lot of professional development and technology services. So those are our core services. We also support both districts, traditional public school districts. We also support a lot of charter school districts. My background happens to be charter schools, and I'm in Tulsa. So I kind of head up our charter work as well as our Tulsa work. And so we have somewhere close to 250 members. We're like edging closer and closer as we go. And so some of those are small districts with, 100 kids, or they're larger charter schools. So I would say the big things that people, a lot of that financial support, a lot of, help me create a budget for next year, because I just don't even know what to do. A lot of our teaching and learning and professional development. We do TLE training. We do board training. So we run the gamut. Sometimes I don't even know everything we're doing here because we have so many cool. And the thing I like the best about it, I'll just stop with my advertisement here with this, which is I love that it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet. If someone comes in and they're like, man, I need this and I need this and I need this, and they realize they need more and more, we're not going to nickel and dime them and come back to them and say, okay, well, that's going to be another, $500 for this and $600 for this. For the most part, our core services, we just give those away for that one price to school districts. And I love that, because I don't want to be in the business of trying to upsell people. I did that when I worked at the fast food place with fries. It's no fun.
You've got me hungry now. I'm ready to go to Golden Corral or Furs if it's still around.
I don't think so.
So The pandemic we talked about earlier, March 11th, 2020, the day that the world stopped, started with the Oklahoma City Thunder game, and we thought it'd be over in a couple of months. But of course, school districts for the past 2 full calendar years went to virtual days and had to develop digital programs. And it's long been talked about the digital divide that exists in many states between rural areas and big cities. Does OPRSC, and I'm just presuming that you've probably been up to your neck in helping school districts with virtual plans and bridging the gap technologically, learning how to use Zoom and Teams or whatever, or StreamYard. So could you talk a little bit about that and how the world has changed for an organization like OPRSC since the start of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think we got a note that said, it was like spring break. We got it that said, if you don't want to, don't come into the office. And then I didn't go in the office again for, a year and a half. But yeah, we are certainly, especially early on, how do you do a board meeting on Zoom, right? And how do you do it where someone doesn't interrupt it if it comes in from the outside? Some kid, a kid comes in and wants to yell profanities in the middle of your board meeting. Well, if you're not careful, you can do that. So we have done a lot of support for that, a lot of support for the virtual piece, a lot of support in Tulsa. We did a lot of support around getting students who didn't have access to broadband. There was a real initiative in Tulsa, and we supported and worked with that to help, especially among charter schools, which is mostly where I work in Tulsa, and really supporting that. So we've kind of been the gamut. What we're seeing more now is how do you transfer back out of that and get back into and catch kids up that are some kids, the last time they were in school 2 school years ago, that was a traditional school year. So really helping people kind of catch up. The other thing, though, that's been important to us is school doesn't need to necessarily look the way it did when we shut it down. And we're thinking about new ways for schools to look in the future. So we've got some innovative school things happening. We've got some school design cohorts for people who are thinking that we want to start something new, because I don't think parents are wanting necessarily to come back to the same school they were that they had their kids at before. And so we're seeing people really kind of craving some different opportunities.
Hey, Eric, when in your work mostly with charters, and I just think about our family over the years with 3, we've used, a lot of different choices in public education. My cum laude RN, right? She was the one we went the most places. I was tell you, with her IQ and ADD, things like that, it's a little bit difficult to get, really focused on that. So she finished in public school, was a charter, private, tried everything, right? Pretty successful today. So the things, and we're having conversations, you're seeing the headlines right now, public schools, charters, there's some friction in the industry. Everybody knows that's worst kept secret in the building. But in terms of the future, and let me make it 2-part question. Number one, when you do charter schools, you're hauling your kids there, right? I mean, that's the sort of thing with privates as well. But how big an issue is this in terms of moving forward in education, getting great outcomes in the state? And number 2, what do you tell the folks who are watching the headlines about the friction between charter public schools, and charter schools are public schools? How do you help people go through the noise to get to what's really happening underneath the surface, and how it really impacts people in the state of Oklahoma and their kids?
Well, I think you bring up something really good, which is, so I've sent my youngest daughter, who's a junior right now. She's at a charter school, the charter school I used to run. She was at a private school for a little while, for a year. She was at Tulsa Public Schools before that. She was at a private pre-K before that, right? The reason I have that opportunity, part of it is around transportation. And one of the things we noticed, especially at the school that I was at, we weren't able to offer transportation. It was extremely expensive. And what I noticed is people will come and say, this could be an opportunity for us, but we can't get our kid there. And so I think it's hugely important for us to have these. If we're going to create choices, we have to also create the whole length of everything. You have to be able to get the kids to the building. You have to get the students to the building in order to do the learning. You have to create as few barriers as possible so that we can really support the students who are at most at need. In Tulsa, most of the charter schools actually do provide transportation. That's something that from the very beginning, both Tulsa Public Schools and a lot of the charter schools really pushed that because they knew it was an equity issue. It was really important. And the students that they wanted to serve, which are by and large, high, students who need support, those students need transportation. Unfortunately, transportation is really expensive. And the state funding formula gets very little money for transportation in the state formula. And so at low ad valorem districts and charter schools who are no ad valorem districts, they unfortunately don't have that local funding to hire buses and et cetera. So that money comes directly out of their out of their general fund, just like with facilities or whatever. For many years, the charter schools that provided transportation were able to use TPS's buses at cost, basically. That worked okay, but TPS is a big system. They've got 90-something schools. The scheduling became harder and harder as those schools became more scaled up. As they got larger, the scheduling, it just became an issue. And I think it really came to a head right around the time of the pandemic. And for us, what we were able to do, we supported the schools in this. The schools all came together, worked together to instead of to bring in a service from outside. So we brought in a company from Kansas City. They're part of the Kincaid group, Kincaid Bus Lines. It's called DS Bus Lines. And so they were able to bring in the buses, the drivers, the scheduling software, and we batched those 4 schools together, and are able to run. We run about 20 buses, about 800 students a day within Tulsa Public Schools. So that, to me, that was a way to do it right, to say, okay, we know that students need this transportation. We know it's not necessarily working with what we're doing. It's going to create scheduling issues. We'll do it on our own. But again, that money comes directly out of the general fund that really should be going to, hiring teachers and those type of things.
A bit of foreshadowing for our next guest, but I'd like to ask you the same question ahead of time. Are there ways, or is there a way for the business community to get involved into the equation with OPRSC?
Well, we are always interested in the business community, reaching out to OPSRC. We love to, we would love that. If you're thinking specifically about transportation, I'm sure there are ways, we've talked about with some of the new opportunities that I think Senator Hilbert's bills bring in. I could certainly see some really interesting people doing things like sharing buses, using something that's smaller than a bus, whether it be a van or a system that's doing that. Or, I know in other places they have like basically Uber, but for kids. Those type of opportunities I think are definitely out there. But I think we have to just kind of be able to get flexible and try some new things. And, so far in Oklahoma, we've got districts, and districts then buy a bus and they hire a driver and they buy the gas and they do this. They do a lot of that with local funding, from their bonds. Okay. But to be a little more flexible, I think we have to kind of start thinking about other ideas.
Eric Doss is the Director of Quality Charter Services for Oklahoma Public School Resource Center. Eric, I know you've got other business to take care of there today, and really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me.
All right. See you again soon.
Okay. See you around.
So it's interesting that there is the worst kept secret right now is there is some friction about where we're going with education in Oklahoma. Kids even wrote a letter, and I would, a long comment. I would say the following. I mean, we're not one and done. We're going to be spending a lot of time, not only on this stream on Saturdays, but future streams and on some of our other platforms about some of the concerns people are having. Folks talking about public schools and the voucher discussion. We're not getting in that today. We're talking about transportation, but we'll get into that. Because I've stolen the phrase that former Secretary Mike Ming, and we're about to start his energy series, which basically is we've got to have better conversations. And that's what we try to do on this channel. So it's so far so good. Ryan, any thoughts about some of the things you've heard in terms of news coverage in the future on these topics?
Well, I mean, I one of the ideas that comes to mind doesn't necessarily pertain to news coverage, although I think this longer form live stream that we do here gives us a chance to go in depth that you can't do in a minute 10 package on TV. All types of content are valid, the short, the medium, the long. And I think this is an opportunity to get more depth and more context. And I think it's particularly fascinating to consider the synergies between districts and parents and the business community, which I know when we talk to Emily Ann from A for Arizona, we're going to get into that and how the business community and business practices can get involved in the equation.
Yeah, and by the way, if you haven't met her yet, we have the old saying is Crackerjack, reporter at the state capitol News 9's, Augusta McDonald. Have you seen? We've done some streams with her. Sometimes she's on our Monday night stream. She's covering these issues. She's doing a great job of covering all the sides, and we'll continue to try to cover all the sides and have Augusta in the future. Our next guest is Emily Ann Gullickson with A for Arizona. You met her at the top, and we still have Janice Danworth, who's going to be with us just a little bit late. Danforth, my apologies, Janice, about what's happening in Tulsa. But I'm curious to find out what's happening with Burnco, by the way. I really want to know it's my favorite barbecue place up there that burned down. Emily, it's great to see you. And thanks for being with us. I know we need to start off with, you sent in our private chat, which we talked back and forth, which was basically go Cards.
Yeah, go Cards.
We're Kyler Murray fans around here. But by the way, we need to get to the big issue. Is he going to stay in Arizona Cardinal?
Fingers crossed.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for being with us.
This is our year. That's what we know. Home turf. This is our year.
It could well be. Well, thanks for being with us, Ryan.
Well, I read up on A for Arizona a little bit before this, and I think it is a fascinating example of how innovation can be translated state to state. So if you would, tell us a little bit about A for Arizona, what its focus is, and what the role of the business community has been in helping to implement this at a school district level.
Yeah, happy to. So we really focus on convening entrepreneurial leaders, school leaders, CEOs, and others in the community that really are working to create a system where we have kids with futures without limits, who all have access to the best education possible in those learning environments. And I'm also a proud board member of Every Kid Counts Oklahoma. And so it's been fun to share lessons learned, best practices underway in Arizona, and how those might apply in Oklahoma with the great team that's on the ground there. And we know that our business community nationally has a workforce shortage and is looking for high quality talent. And so it's a no-brainer for them to be at the table and making sure that they're rolling up their sleeves with us around how can we think differently to build K-12 systems that work for every child and also produce that top talent coming down the pipeline.
Could you tell us a little bit about what happens in districts? Because I think one of the, in the business world, we're always thinking about solutions, but we have to identify what the problems are. And it seems to me that one of the problems that comes up at a district to district level is that districts can get punished if they actually achieve certain goals. They meet a certain standard, and then all of a sudden the funding isn't there for them in the future. So could you talk a little bit about results-based funding and how that applies to what A for Arizona is doing?
Yeah, so, we definitely partner with those results-oriented folks that have figured out the secret sauce on how to close the achievement gap and keep it closed. And we learned from a handful of the leaders who had come from school improvement. They'd achieved what we as a state said we wanted them to attain. And at the time, funding was cut. And so our state legislature and Governor Ducey championed performance-based pay that really recognizes it takes time, talent, resources to get results with kids, and double that for those getting results in low-income communities. And it's really helped our schools to be able to sustain their great models and also grow their impact. There's an expectation when you receive that kind of funding that you'll either teach others how to do what you do, whether they're in your same system or another public school nearby, or look for additional ways to expand, serve more kids, replicate your model, both district and public charter options. And so we're excited about bills underway, like Speaker Pro Tem Hilbert mentioned, on driving dollars towards your irreplaceable great teachers. It matters. And we definitely know that has been essential for keeping some of our best talent in the classrooms. We also have some additional funding that's focused on if you can empower your students to pass credit earning college courses while they're in high school, you get additional dollars back to your school to sustain those programs and also add more courses to be able to serve more students. Again, overweighted for those getting great results for kids in high poverty communities. And so it's making a difference.
So it seems just like in the business community, results matter. The bottom line in terms of student success. I'll ask you the same.
And Ryan, I do want to jump in there quickly. That is definitely what we model on. We think there is an important pathway for school improvement, but it can't be the only pathway, right? And for too long, that's all we focused on in the K-12 community. And we view this expanding excellence, scaling best practices, just like our business allies leverage, is really critical.
Are there a couple of examples that you could cite of business practices, maybe business practices that have evolved during the course of the pandemic? The past 2 years is much different than the previous history. Are there any new cutting edge business practices that you're seeing that school districts could apply?
Well, one of the things we're seeing right now is the use of design thinking, right? We have so many leaders who took advantage during the pandemic to actually redesign their models, whether they're high school, middle school, and to really look at, like, are we producing the kind of durable skills our youth will need? Are we designing the models, more importantly, the parents want, right? Recognizing that every child does not learn the same way. And so we've been thrilled to see folks really stretch the limits there. We have a new seat time flexibility law here, which is really empowering schools to collaborate with community-based organizations and businesses. But I would give a huge shout out for the transportation modernization efforts underway in Arizona, and thrilled to see Oklahoma joining the ranks and leading the way on how to modernize. There's so much technology, here in Arizona, we have autonomous vehicles, we're leading in technology, and yet up until this past year, we were really a single solution for how to get kids to and from school. And so it's been phenomenal to see leaders from electric industry to technology to other sectors really come to the table and want to participate in rethinking how to modernize issues like K-12 transit, which have been a real barrier for so many families for so long, not just here in Arizona, but also in Oklahoma. And there's a lot of potential. You've got a booming sector of new businesses coming to the state. And so, there's a lot of potential of great thought partners to join you all in your efforts.
By the way, when you're reforming or you're innovating, disrupting is another term that I like. What kind of hurdles do you get into? Any political partisan hurdles that are thrown up on this, or is this just more along the lines of standard sort of pushback on disruption?
All of the above. I will say, so we have the pleasure at AVE Arizona of administering the state's Transportation Modernization Grants Program. And leaders from both sides of the aisle were very thrilled to see who ultimately received an award and has an initiative underway. We saw rural, urban, and suburban system leaders, the majority who were from school districts, and then over 40% of the proposals were from rural and remote communities, all come to the table and really put ideas that were local based, community driven solutions. And so that's really helped people see, this can benefit every constituent, right? This really shouldn't be a partisan issue. And it's definitely no secret that the driver shortage has impacted students across the country, and Oklahoma is no different. We have leaders in both parties that are acknowledging that, like, there aren't enough bus drivers. That's meant not every child has reliable, efficient, safe transportation options to get to school. and learn. And so some by need, some by urgency, some by desire to embrace innovation. It's kind of all three that people are all coming to the table and looking at options outside the yellow school bus. Right now, you also have a group from sort of the progressive left that's really embracing electric vehicles, but it also aligns well, right, with modernizing and thinking differently about how we transport kids. And so you're seeing really the whole spectrum come to the table, some more quickly than others.
Gets us back in that energy discussion, Ryan, which is, you have people that are innovating in energy, and there's a lot, sometimes there's partisan pushback where you're leaving the rationality of something to the side because you've got to hit the partisan aspect of it.
I will say we have a handful of rural superintendents who are embracing electric buses because they know that they can save so much on maintenance and fuel and create really reliable routes so that kids are learning, and then want to put those dollars back into their schools to prioritize teacher pay and other options. And so you definitely are seeing a whole gambit of solutions.
Emily Ann Gullickson is with A for Arizona, and watching what we're doing here. I really appreciate your thoughts. And your last aspect of it was you're talking about people with definite philosophical, political leanings, but they're getting involved in this. And
I think it's critical. And I do want to give a quick shout out to Governor Sitt and Secretary Walters. They have not been shy about being all in on Oklahoma becoming a top 10 state in education. We've taken notice. Our legislators have taken notice. Governor Ducey's taken notice. So we're thrilled to have additional thought partners that want to embrace innovation and prioritize building systems that work best for every child. And that means options. And that also means not doing the same old as we've always done, because it really isn't working for every kid. So honored to be here this morning.
Good to see you. And best of luck for the Cards, as long as they're not.
Absolutely. Go Cardinals.
They did actually do a face mask on Aaron Rodgers, and 10 years ago in that playoff. I mean, they should have thrown that flag, but anyway, but let bygones be bygones, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank
Emily
you.
Ann Gullickson, A for Arizona. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks so much.
Okay, we're going to get to our guest here in just a moment. Our last guest, who's been waiting patiently, but your line of questioning was interesting. As long where the business community can help, and you can see the partisan stuff comes in occasionally,
right?
But not a whole lot, right?
It does, and there are practical applications, and there are many businesses who get involved with foundations and funds to help that are, in the news industry. We've long talked about what is the direction of the news industry. You've got newspapers who have become nonprofits. I'm working with the Oklahoma Media Center as part of the Inasmuch Foundation. There are many ways that businesses can get involved, sometimes at the ground floor level and sometimes at the very top. And it's just fascinating to see the synergy between districts, parents, and the business community, each of whom brings good ideas, and working together, I think every district becomes stronger.
And speaking of that partisan divide, as Emily was just mentioning, we're about to have maybe the most vetted education discussion / election that's ever happened in Oklahoma. For anybody who is like a fly on the wall, the superintendent of public instruction, Joy Hoffmeister, is going to be most likely be the Democrat nominee to run against Governor Stitt. There's going to be discussions on healthcare, education. It's going to be the same way with the Secretary of Education, the next superintendent of public instruction election. And so, are we going to do all sides of that? You bet. We're going to get all sides of that one. So looking forward to that. That's going to be spirited. All right. Our next guest is joining us from Tulsa, Oklahoma, Janice Danforth of Moms for Liberty. And we were just, Janice, tell us a little bit about your organization. We were really intrigued about how your interest in the transportation aspect of this is, how your organization is interested in that aspect, among other issues, of course.
Okay, sure. Well, I don't know if you're familiar with Moms for Liberty, but we are a national organization that started in Florida, and they started just last January, so just over a year, and it's grown across the nation like wildfire. Parents are ready to fight for their kids and be involved in what's going on in public schools, and we're not happy what we're seeing, so we're just ready to change it. It needs to be completely shifted out. And so this is one avenue of doing that and just getting out of that sitting in a box thought process to say we can do more and we can do better with what we have by thinking differently.
Could you tell us specifically about your interest in the transportation issue and how it affects what you're doing as an organization?
Well, specifically for me, what I got reached out to about it because so I have two sons and they're both in public school and they attend two different campuses. They both play sports, and so sometimes I have to drive them, which for the most part works out just fine. But there are times that Mondays, for example, I work late. My husband works downtown Tulsa, so there's no way for my son to do practice, which goes after school. So it goes all the way to 4:15. So on that day, he has to take the bus home because there's no way for me to pick him up at that time. So he misses out on that opportunity that he would otherwise be able to do if a friend or someone else can't bring him home. So just realizing that it's just another piece of a bigger picture. It's just a piece of the puzzle that if we can innovate differently to help kids have more opportunities, this is just one example that has affected me personally. And I know there's lots and lots of other parents who've had that same issue.
Speaking of the bigger picture, I noticed that the Tulsa chapter is the only Moms for Liberty chapter in Oklahoma. Was there a particular issue that prompted you to get involved and get that started? And was it easy to start? And what's the response been like from other parents?
Yeah, so actually about a year and a half ago, my son, we attend Bixby public schools, and my son in his freshman year was being taught things in his government class that goes against what I feel is necessary. It was very liberal leaning, and I'm very conservative. And so I was very upset that he was being taught what he was. He's very educated in politics. So he knows all of it. So he just came home and was like, Mom, listen to what I was being taught. Well, the answer, I went through all the protocol, and the answer to it was, well, we can just take your kid out of honors and put him in a non-honors class. So I was like, that's not really solving the problem here. So that was kind of the first thing that got me more interested in what's going on in the public school. And so I started following Moms for Liberty that same summer. And then I thought, well, why can't I start a chapter here that gets people interested and gets people knowing that there's more than just one person, because that's what it ends up feeling when you go to a board meeting or whatever, you speak out, you feel like it's just you and there's not other parents. So with that, I had to have 10 members initially, which I ended up finding 10 members by going to board meetings and speaking out. I would have people come up to me after and want to be a part of it. I'm at almost 450 members right now in Tulsa, and we've had great interest. We've had a lot of parents that are just really just thirsty for what we're doing, and they want to be a part of it, and they want more. They want to be involved in what's going on, and we're just able to shine the light on things that people haven't noticed before and just being more aware.
So you mentioned the role that politics plays in this, and it's an election year. Are there any issues where maybe say people on different sides of the political aisle, where maybe let's say a liberal set of parents joins Moms for Liberty and they're like, yeah, we have some common issues that we're passionate about. Has that happened yet?
It has not. However, Moms for Liberty is a nonpartisan group. We want that. We want everyone to say the kids are first. Our kids are first. We get to decide how our kids are taught in school. We get to be a part of that. We're taxpayers, we're parents. We want to be involved in that process. So we want all sides of the aisle to be involved in this. And in fact, I did a couple weeks ago, I did a special meeting, because I had asked for some books to be removed, and there was, because they were inappropriate, and there was both sides of the aisle there. And I even thanked them at the end that both views were there, because it's important to have those conversations and to be able to talk about it and say, why do you see it this way? Why do you see it this way? Can we come to an agreement and make a compromise to some level so we can do what's best for the kids?
Janice, back to the top of the show, the Speaker Pro Tem Hilbert's education bills,
Yes.
transportation bills. How important are these to you and your group this year?
As far as in the group, we haven't talked a ton about it, but it is important. Again, I go back to just my example and how it affected me personally. And that's kind of how I approach this, because I just started Moms for Liberty a few months back. So this has kind of been more on my side of what I've been getting involved in, because I'm interested in politics way before I started Moms for Liberty. So it's more of a piece that I've pursued on my own. But I know all changes, that's a big piece in Moms for Liberty as a whole, is how can we better students? And so in this case, just having that ability for the grant money to go from the school to the parent or to a group to be able to do some kind of a drive share, ride share program, or be able to give them money for bus fare so that they can go to a better school. Maybe a student that lives in not a great area, but is super, super intelligent or very talented in arts, music, what have you, gives them that ability to get out of that environment they're in that will better suit them and help them in the future as they move forward.
Any last thoughts on other issues that, and thanks, by the way, for waiting around to
Sure.
the end of the stream. Any other thoughts right now, folks, or issues that you're really concerned about that you're wanting to discuss with the public in Oklahoma?
We have lots of them. So where do we start? We're actually dealing with one right now, surveys that have gone out to students and just finding out more about what's behind that. And it's a mental health one that has a lot of questionable material in it. So now that we're paying attention, and that's our fault as parents that we weren't paying attention, we were kind of just trusting that things were going a certain way. And now that we're paying attention, we're really starting to see things that we're not thrilled with. And so now, but because we have a collective group, we're able to say, as a group, to say, we don't like this and we want to make a change. And so surveys that are going out and that are mandatory through the school system, which is through the state, is a concern right now that we're working with.
Well, we want to thank you. I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask, are any plans to get involved it's an election year, any plans to get involved at the election level, get members elected to school boards?
Oh, for sure. We've got, so I'm not endorsing as Moms for Liberty this year, just because I am still learning and I just wanted to kind of figure out what I'm doing. But starting next season, I will definitely be endorsing. And I work with a lot of local school board that I support personally. And we do support as Moms for Liberty, but not endorse for my reason I just stated. But yeah, we fully, that's a big piece of what we're doing, is getting behind to switch the school board to be like-minded, parent-involved type mentality for that board, so we can come forward with these issues and get them fixed.
Thanks so much for your time. Again,
yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
At the very end,
Appreciate it.
Somebody always draws that short straw, right? As we try to have these a little more in-depth conversations, and we're so grateful. And the weather's going to be so much better than yesterday. So hope you enjoy your weekend, Janice.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you all.
You too. Okay. Well, there's it's not our first Saturday episode in the can, but a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking aviation. I think next week we'll be talking about some things that are happening in Washington on our Saturday stream. Mr. Welton, your thoughts about this Beyond the Bell first episode featuring Speaker Pro Tem Kyle Hilbert?
The hour flew by, and I will tell you, just pulling back the curtain for folks who don't necessarily do what we do or have never worked in a newsroom, one of the joys of this is not only exposing the public to different thoughts, ideas, programs, things that impact parents, families, and communities, but it's the opportunity to get to learn about it yourself. These are busy folks doing important work. And I'm glad to have gotten a chance to learn about it behind the scenes. It makes me excited for the next couple of years, not only for the election year, which is always fun and interesting, but how schools can be improved through innovation.
It is interesting to have conversations. The art of the conversation has slowly slipped away. People are more adept at the art of the snarky soundbite, right? I mean, politics, that's right. The better skill.
The art of the argument, and as you noted, and you have in your Twitter profile about better conversations, and I think that's really important to have civilized, better conversations.
And Kit, I saw your questions and comments, and I would also say you can talk to Ryan or me. You can send me a text message, or actually an email, scott@mitchelltalks.com. You've got ideas on this platform or other platforms we have. We'll tackle those. I mean, we're happy to do that. You can't get every side and every bit in one setting, but we do quite a bit. I think Monday night we're going to be talking a little bit about the impact of the Inhofe resignation on our defense industries. Senator Inhofe has been there for a long time. The focus has been on the horse race to replace him, but we're going to really focus on some of those industries that could be, well, let's just put it this way. There are other states seeing Senator Inhofe retire and thinking about, I'd like to get what Oklahoma has in terms of those industries and bases and that sort of thing. So we want to have those better conversations. Okay, well, I think that's it. I wanted to first, let's give a shout out to Nate, who has done a great job this morning and who, keeps me straight in line on weekends, making sure that we can get our content out. We appreciate everything he does back at the station. Thanks to our folks at News on 6, News 9. And I think Your Vote Counts tomorrow is going to be one segment, because of an announcement that I was not glad to hear. Our good friend, one of the best news ladies in the country, one of the best journalists in this country, Ashley Holden, is going to be going back home. And dang it, I hated to hear that.
Right. Her tenacity and grit. I've always believed that the single biggest key to success in any business, or just personally, is grit. I love that word, grit. It's the grind, it's the tenacity, and Ashley embodies that.
She does. And she doesn't know what a time clock is. She can't punch it. Okay. We've done Saturday streams occasionally with her. She's worked on projects this is a person who is going to be who's already a legend, and we hate to be losing her. Comments from folks. Sandra says, thanks very much for offering different perspectives. Linda says, important conversation on education. We need many more of these around the state. Thanks, Scott and Ryan. So it's great to hear that. Thanks very much for the comments, and thanks for all of y'all that have tuned in today. And so we're going to go take advantage of this weather. Ryan, last thoughts?
No last thoughts. Glad baseball is back, and excited to see what these schools are doing through innovation.
Same here. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Your Vote Counts tomorrow morning on News 9 and Monday night on our Mitchell Talks. Have a great weekend, everyone.